Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another weekly spotlight of the brand new factions coming to Age of Empires 3 with the release of the Baltic Powers DLC on September 10th. This is Iron Kaiser Gaming, and in this week's spotlight, we're taking a look at the Cossack Hetmanate. It's the Cossacks, one of the brand new revolutions coming to the game that's unique to the Poles. Cossacks are pretty interesting. Historically, they're tied to several modern European nations, such as the Ukrainians. They're also one of the only Age 3 revolutions in the game, alongside the Livonian Order, which we looked at a couple of weeks ago. If we take a look at their revolution, and we can see the very first bonus we get as soon as we revolt to the Hetmanate, is that our settlers become Cherns. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They are defensive farmers, and we'll see that they really do live up to that name. We also get access to the Haidamaka, who can dismount and counter infantry. They replace crossbowmen and retainers. So let's go ahead and revolt. And as we're researching the technology, I'm going to remind you, what we'll do is look at the unique units of this revolution first, and then we'll turn around and look at the unique cards and technologies that the Cossacks bring to the table. With that in mind, we are now the Cossacks, and let's take a look first and foremost at the Chern, their unique villager. Now, these guys are interesting. From an economic standpoint, they are simply better than the average villager. They gather faster. They seem to gather from all wild resources about 10% faster, so collecting from trees, wild game, coin mines, anything natural on the map, they gather 10% faster. Then they gather 15% faster from estates and a whopping 20% faster when assigned to folwarks and farms. So they are truly some of the best farmers in the game. And just all around better than the average vill. Now, when we look at the rest of the stats, they're very interesting. The Chern has significantly less HP than the average settler, only 135 HP compared to the typical settler's 150. Interestingly, when they gather together in groups, they gain more HP, up to a maximum of 153, which is just ever so slightly more than the regular settler. I don't know if the extra 3 HP really means anything or not to the average gameplay experience, but it's kind of an interesting fact. So if you're playing against the Cossacks and you happen to catch one of these guys out in isolation, they might go down faster than the average settler. But on the other hand, they do move faster. They have no melee armor, but they have a lot of extra ranged armor. And so you say, maybe I just get hussars or ulans on these guys and melt them down. But wait a minute. Take a look at the hand attack. It's a little bit weaker than the average settler, but the multipliers against cavalry are crazy. And so I actually think that these guys, even though they might have less HP than normal, maybe, if they're not clumped together, but they're still going to actually fight off small cavalry raids much more effectively than your average group of settlers will be able to. Also, this is a big theme for the Cossacks, they have significantly higher siege damage than the average vill, and a lot of Cossack units have high siege damage. Speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about the Haidamaka. Here we go. We're looking at the Haidamaka rifleman here. He's replacing the crossbowman. And the stats, once again, are interesting. The Haidamaka rifleman has less base attack. You're actually losing some light cavalry multiplier here, so they're not going to be as effective fighting dragoon-type units. But, and also, let me see here. They do move, however, a little faster. Once again, they've got better siege damage than the average crossbowman. They do benefit from counter-infantry rifling in the arsenal, so they get extra heavy infantry multiplier. And the heavy infantry mult that these guys have is already better than crossbowmen. So even without that arsenal technology, the Haidamaka rifleman is going to be better at knocking out pikemen or enemy musketeers, those types of heavy infantry units. Will go down faster to this Cossack unit here. Higher siege attack, But the main thing about the Haidamaka rifleman is that you're actually able to mount up on a horse and transform this light infantry unit into a light cavalry unit. So you can imagine a situation where you're walking around with these riflemen, you run into enemy artillery that would normally be a threat, but you can instead hop on your horse, and now as a light cavalry unit, that's a fight that you win instead of lose, right? Or, of course, you can mount up in order to more effectively raid and maneuver across the map. So there's a lot of flexibility there. The Haidamaka, the cavalry version, replaces the retainer in the stable. And it's very interesting where, if I compare those two units, they're very different. I mean, this is a light cavalry unit. The retainer is a heavy cavalry unit. The Haidamaka is going to have less HP, no melee armor. It's got a weaker melee attack, but it does have a ranged attack, which the retainer doesn't have. However, Haidamaka is slightly faster. You've got ranged armor. And of course, once again, these guys can dismount. So you imagine a situation where you're moving around with these light cavalry units. You run into enemy heavy infantry. Heavy infantry beats light cavalry, but all I have to do is dismount, and all of a sudden I am now a light infantry unit, and those skirmisher units will win against the the heavy infantry. So Haidamaka is really interesting. I'd say that this guy is not better than the Cossack cavalry archer, and they're not better dismounted than the Piekur. This is going to be a better skirmisher than the Haidamaka. But having that flexibility to switch your unit type on the fly means that you're going to be able to pull off some interesting tactical maneuvers that could win you a match, a fight that you otherwise would lose. Pretty cool stuff. Here we go, the Cossack Daredevil. So this is not a new unit. This is a mercenary unit that's already in the game. And he's kind of a heavy infantry version of what we just saw with the Haidamaka, right? The stats are not necessarily the most impressive thing on the planet. Decent ranged attack. The HP is okay. Nothing I think really stands out. I actually don't understand the purpose of the knife attack. It takes quite a bit to charge up. You have to fire off about 10 shots from your gun before you finally get the knife attack, and the knife attack does the same amount of damage as a normal shot anyway, so I will admit I don't see the point of this ability, but you are able to mount up as a heavy infantry unit, and you become the mounted Cossack Daredevil, which is a heavy cavalry unit, where you have that lance charge, and you are, of course, able to dismount from heavy cav into heavy infantry. So I can see an army of Cossack Daredevils and Haidamaka being really annoying to deal with. They're pretty cool in that sense. We also have, if we look in the Cossack home city here, we're not looking at the cards quite yet, but I do want to highlight unique units. We have, let's see, the Tabors, the Starshina, and the Seryuks. All right. Let's turn off that noise for a second here. All right. The Starshina, very interesting heavy cavalry unit. Compared to the Winged Hussar, which it replaces after you research that technology, you do lose some things. The Starshina is slightly slower. It has a slightly weaker attack, and you do lose the anti-infantry multiplier that the Winged Hussar has. But critically, I mean, he does have higher siege attack. Again, that's your Cossack influence coming in there. But also, your hand attack now does AoE damage. You're doing splash damage with your melee. So when you get to that stage in the game where you're having massive units going at each other, being able to spread out that damage across multiple units, I think makes the Starshina a particularly strong upgrade to what the Winged Hussar brings to the table. Here's the Tabor, by the way. This one's pretty cool. I think these guys are very similar to a German war wagon. They're a high HP light cavalry unit that has deflection. You are absorbing damage that nearby enemies are dishing out to your other units and spreading it amongst your Tabor instead, which just provides a lot of extra resiliency to your army. Pretty cool stuff. The description of the unit says it absorbs damage from nearby infantry and artillery, but I don't think deflection works that way. I think it's just like from any source, it's going to absorb damage. So I don't know if that's unique to the Tabor or if that's just, cute wording to maybe highlight the fact that this is just normal deflection. I'm not sure one way or the other on that one. Here we go. The Seruk. Heavy infantry unit. You actually have HP regeneration on top of a pretty impressive health pool for a heavy infantry unit here. Decent ranged attack, but notice the double multiplier against mercenaries and native warriors. So if you are, if you have an opponent who's using either of those types of units, the Seruk, I think, is a very effective counter to that. And seeing as you otherwise, as the Poles, you don't get access to the Musketeer. You don't have a heavy infantry unit. And unless you're using the Cossack Daredevil, you still, as the Cossacks, don't have heavy infantry. This could be an interesting tech switch where you have a bunch of Piekor on the field, the enemy's expecting light infantry, bam, you pick out this card, and all of a sudden all of your light infantry are heavy infantry. That is a play that could win you the match. And they're pretty impressive for heavy infantry, so very cool. Now with that, I think we've looked at all of the unique units that the Cossacks have. Let's go over their unique cards. These first three cards, Haidamaka Uprising, all these first cards are kind of built around building up a big base. You don't want to send them right at the start of the match or as soon as you revolt to the Cossacks. You want to wait until you've got just an elaborate, spread out base, because the more buildings you have on the field, the more you're getting from these cards. Haidamaka Uprising, you're getting 2 Haidamaka for every house and economic building you have. For the Kosinski Uprising, you're getting 2 Cossack Daredevils for every military building and folwark you have. And if you're playing the Poles right, you're going to have a lot of folwarks, so this could be a very useful card. Khmelnytsky Uprising, yes. For every outpost, trading post, and folwark, you get 2 Serdyuks, and for each town center, Sejm, and fort, you receive 2 Starshina. So, again, you're getting a lot of units there as long as you have the buildings to support it. It's pretty cool stuff. Raiding Economy. Destroying enemy buildings, artillery, and ships now grant extra resources in addition to XP, especially high-value targets like factories, wonders, and forts. That Cossack style, high siege damage, you're going to be able to raid very effectively. You should be doing damage and destroying enemy buildings, and now you're getting even more out of it. This is a pretty nice synergistic card for playing as the Cossacks. Vodka Distillery, this one's an insane card, I think a highlight to the Cossack economy. It improves your coin gather rate on estates and taverns, and now farmers on folwarks generate extra coin income. Remember, the Chern already does better on folwarks and farms, and he does better on estates than the average settler. And now they're going to generate coin on top of that? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That means you already have a better than average food eco. Now you're getting all of this extra coin support from that. You couple that up with agrarian reforms right here, where villagers gather food from agriculture significantly faster. They're already doing better than the average settler on the farm. This is going to be an insane combination right here. I think that they're going to have a very strong economy. Not to mention, there are several cards, several of your military cards actually send you more villagers. So you're improving your economy at the same time as you're fighting against the enemy. Like with the Kihiran regiment here, where you get 9 Serdyuks and 6 Cherns so you're getting both villagers and, in this case, Serdyuks, heavy infantry, from this card. The Korsun regiment, you're getting Cossack Daredevils and settlers and Cherns. Right, Cossack Daredevils now partially cost food. You have an amazing food eco, so this is, I think, a bonus. The Poltava Regiment, you're sending 6 Starshina and 12 Cherns. So that's 12 plus 10 plus 6. 16 plus 12, that's 28 settlers. Better than settlers, right? 28 Cherns just from these 3 military cards. You're fighting your opponent, doing that. You're waging battle, waging war, and building up your eco at the same time with these cards. Yeah, they do cost coin. They cost a lot, so there's that, but they're pretty strong. Bila Zervka Regiment, you get 14 Cav Archers and 66 Cherns. Improve the damage and arrow release of your cavalry archers. Your archers are going to do more damage, and they're going to fire faster, which is an amazing combination here. Again, you already have some of the best cav archers in the game as the Poles. Playing as the Cossacks, it's just good stuff. You'd love to see it. Outlaw combat. Outlaw mercenary units' hit points and damage increased. Here's a complaint about World's Edge. If any of you guys, any of the developers are listening, outlaws are not clearly defined in game. You cannot tell from selecting. Here's the Haidamaka, for example. Now, it does say Outlaw Rider in the little description. And it turns out that, yes, the Haidamaka is an outlaw, so he does benefit. But if I look at the Cossack Daredevil, for example, heavy range Cossack infantry from the wild fields, it says nothing about an outlaw. And if you were to mouse over the outlaw, like here, if I look at the type of unit, it doesn't say that it's an outlaw unit. But I've done the research, and I can go ahead and tell you that Haidamaka and Cossacks, Cossack Daredevils, those 2 units are both benefiting from outlaw combat. So I already mentioned how strong and how flexible a Haidamaka Cossack Daredevil composition could be. If you're able to throw this card into the mix, you're getting 15% extra HP, 15% extra damage on core units in your roster. It's pretty awesome. In Age 3, you're able to ship Haidamaka, you're able to ship Cossack Daredevils, you're able to ship Tabors. I think this is the only way you can get Tabors, if I'm not mistaken. Wild Fields. Folwarks can train Cherns, and Pikemen are upgraded to Scythemen. This is the Imperial Age upgrade for Pikemen. You otherwise can't really access it without this card, or another card that we're going to look at in a second here. But this is a very quick and easy way to get an Imperial Age upgrade onto a unit that you may or may not already have on the field. Pretty good stuff. Register Cossacks. It sends 3 Daredevils, and Outlaw-type units cost less population, and Cossack Daredevils can be hired from taverns, stables, forts, and outposts. I don't know if I can see off the top of my head here. Yeah, they cost 3 pop, so that would bring it down to, I would assume, 2 population now for those Cossack units. Pretty good stuff. The Cossack Navy replaces the caravels, galleons, and frigates with, sloops and privateers and jebek. Good stuff. The Zaporozhian Sich delivers 1 fort that your hetman can rebuild, upgrades military folwarks to Sitches, or maybe it's Sikhs, which have a garrison attack. They can also train artillery, and that's all artillery, by the way. It turns your folwarks, your military folwarks, into cannon foundries. So you're able to train, your falconets, your culverins, your horse artillery, your mortars. I mean, it does it all, right? It's pretty wild. And again, I'm assuming if you're playing the Poles right, you're playing the Cossacks right, you're gonna have folwarks all over the place. So now you just have these, garrisonable farms that can train any artillery you want. That's pretty wild. Now, these last 2 cards, I've saved the best for last because they are the most transformative of the Cossack cards. We have the Kiev Monastery of the Caves, which gives us the Lavra Monastery. It's kind of a mini factory church, and it can be rebuilt by hetman and priests, and it unlocks some unique technologies. And then we also have the Cossack Code of Law, which converts the same into a Rada that can spawn artillery. And you'll remember that the same, it's like a mini factory, and it generates more resources the more villagers we have on the field. Well, with the Rada, that actually now generates more resources for all units that are on the field. So your military is adding to the economic contribution of the Rada as well. But it's the technologies that are really cool here. So let's go ahead and unlock both of these. Boom, boom. Okay. And we're going to look at them both briefly. Here's the Lavra. I'm going to pop it right here. There we go. Here we go. You'll notice I can switch the type of resource that I am collecting here. It's two of whatever resource per second, which is about, again, 2/5 of the generic factory rate. Church Distilleries enables tavern wagons here at the Lavra, and it improves the resource production of taverns, folwarks, and estates. So, as if your folwarks were not already amazing at producing, food, and maybe you've got a coin generation going at your folwarks. Now you're able, and you've got estates where Cherns are producing better than average. This is just eco on top of eco on top of eco. An amazing technology. Church Peasants. The Lavra Monastery can train Cherns, so you've got kind of a mini town center thing going on here. And it enhances the nearby gather rates. Cherns gain more hit points and can also regenerate them. From my playing around, it looks like it's about maybe 7% more gather rate when you're working near the Lavra. It's not a lot, but more is more, right? And being able to actually generate, being able to create more Cherns just means you're supercharging your economy potential even higher, right? And then we have the Grand Duchy of Ruthenia. This is maybe the coolest technology in the game here. Unlocks more and new powerful military economic options for the Cossack Minute. I said the most powerful. This is the coolest technology of the revolution. That's what I meant to say. Because what this does is it actually unlocks Age 4 for you. Let's see if I can turn on my cheat code again. Now, it doesn't show up here. It still says you're in Age 3. It doesn't change the number here, but you'll see the town center has changed. And now if I go into my barracks, I can upgrade my pikeman to scytheman. Of course, I could do that for free with the card we saw earlier, but boom. I can upgrade my cav archers to Pensarni. That's done. And then from either the stable or the barracks, I can research Guard Cossacks, which increases the attack and the HP of the Haidamaka, the Serduks, and the Starshina by 30%, all in one tech. It's decently expensive at 1,200 wood and 1,200 coin, but guess what? You've got this incredibly strong economy. You can probably afford it, right? So I think that this Cossacks revolution is pretty wild. Now, before we go anywhere, I've got to mention the Rada. So, the Same has these technologies that increase food generation, wood gen. So this is how your Cherns are producing things, or gathering resources, as well as the Same itself, right? And then this last one makes your native warriors less expensive and kind of increases your limits there. Well, the card that we just sent, right? Here it is. Yep. Just double checking myself here, but it creates a level 2 version of the same technologies. So once again, you're actually gathering food faster. You're gathering wood faster. You're gathering coin faster. Your economic potential playing as the Cossacks seems to be off the charts. And, again, like the Haidamaka, I've been kind of hyping up this unit here. It only costs food, right? So it's just unbelievable to me. The kind of the economic strength that you could have with this revolution, the military options. I would expect that the Cossack Hetmanate provides a really strong spin on the Polish strategy. Anyway, that's all I've got. At this point, we've looked at all the home city cards, all the unique units. I hope you've enjoyed this review, this spotlight of the Cossacks. Let me know in the comments below if you're excited for this revolution and what you want to see next from Iron Kaiser Gaming. This is the Iron Kaiser signing off, and I will see you next week. Have a great one out there.